Hello everyone. In this video, we will cover organizational control from A.5.14 to A.5.22. So let's get started with the first one, which is A.5.14, which is information transfer. So this control asks the organization to protect information during transfer within and outside the organization. Now, information transfer is a very common exercise which happens almost all the time, I will say, in any company, that you are always transferring information. Whenever you are sending an email to your employees or within your company, then also you are transferring information, maybe from your laptop to other laptop, maybe from one server to other server. Even when a internal employee is downloading some data or accessing a page, he is actually downloading information from a database server or an application server, right? And sharing information outside is also like very common. Like you, every company has multiple vendors, multiple outside of the stakeholders where they keep on transferring the information. So it asks that these kind of information should be protected. The best example can be, let's say if you are sharing any sensitive document, it need to be encrypted using email services. One of the example. The next one is access control. So this one asks that access control shall be implemented to ensure only authorized person have the access, right? I will give an example. Like two-factor authentication should be something which need to be there in order to ensure the right access control, so that only authorized person uh, can be allowed to access a particular information. The next one is identity management. So this control manages identities to ensure only authorized access to information system is available. I will give an example here. Let's assume that there is an organization which uses a central identity management, right? Something like a Active Directory, so that single sign-on is enabled, so that it's only your same Active Directory username and password through which you can log into all the systems of that organization. So what you're doing is you're managing the identity. Now, why it is centralized and why identity management is generally like linked to centralized systems? Because the management is way easier and way much practical. If you have, let's say, 10 system, or maybe 10 system is very small. In our company, you generally access 20-30 different systems. If you will have 20-30 different passwords, then the identity of the user will not be feasible to be maintained, right? So maintaining like 30 different identities, 30 different username, and linking it to one user is a difficult task. And of course, seamless integration will not be possible. Like if you want to implement two-factor authentication across all devices, you have to do them one by one, so it increases a lot of cost, lot of effort. So that's why centralized identity management is always preferred. That have a centralized management enables things like SSO in your upcoming applications, and there you go. The next one is authentication information, A.5.17. So this control protects authentication information such as password against unauthorized access. So I will give an example here. So this control generally asks that the passwords, right, or the authentication information can is now not limited to password in case of what you call two-factor authentication, or in the advanced system, it could be your fingerprint, it could be your passkey, it could be your token. So these kind of keys to the system or the authentication information, like the passwords, your biometric data, these should be protected, right? Maybe in a secure vault, maybe in a what you called encrypted box kind of thing, so that it does not have any unauthorized access. The next one is access rights. So this one suggests that always maintain user access right and manage it through their employment. Let's try to understand it with an example. So this one suggests that keep on reviewing your access right at a regular interval and keep on adjusting it whenever a role changes. So let's say a system analyst today has an access to a system where he works on incident management data, but tomorrow he gets promoted or he changes the team. Now he's no more a part of that previous team which was doing incident management. Now he's a part of a different team which only does change management, right? So he will not need data to the previous system but to the new system. So in this case, there has to be a proper review so that his previous accesses can be revoked and the new accesses can be given. And of course, periodic review is very necessary so that the right access can always be maintained. The next one is A.5.19, which talks about secure authentication. Now, see, there are two differences, right? And there could be a confusion that this particular A5.17 also talks about authentication information, and this talks about secure authentication, right? So why we have two controls almost saying the same thing about authentication? So let's understand it. So the previous one, which is A5.17, was suggesting that authentication information protection. That whenever you have the authentication information in your servers, like passwords or biometric data, which or whatever key is required to authenticate yourself, that particular information, like the password and the biometric data, shall be protected. Now, this one talks implement secure authentication mechanism to validate user identities. Understand it with the example. So the best example here will be biometric authentication, multi-level authentication. Some company also gives a pass key, or things like Google Authenticator has to be used as a multi-factor authentication, right? So this suggests that don't only have kind of one kind of authentication mechanism that people are entering password and they are good to access. No, have things like multi-factor authentication, which are more complex to break. Even if one layer is broken, like password, the system cannot still be authenticated till the time the second information or second authentication information is not known. So secure authentication asks you to have multi-factors, have secure authentication, right? And A5.17 is asked to protect those information, like both the information, right? Whether it's only password, whether it's password plus biometric, secure those things, and it asks you to have more things. So I hope this one is clear. The next one is A5.20, cryptographic control. So this says that always use cryptographic control to protect information confidentiality, integrity, and availability. What is confidentiality, integrity, and availability? We have already learned in our last video. So you can go back and check that out. So cryptography technique, why it is specific is the reason is there are many algorithms or crypto encryption algorithm which are now outdated, right? So these information are available whoever are like implementing encryption in any company, also on many government sites or also on many encryptions algorithm side. This information is available that which encryptions are already outdated or the encryption algorithms are already outdated. So this one asks that whenever you first of all you implement it, and whenever you implement it right. Don't use something which is already fallen, right? The next one is A5.2.1. So this also is an extension of the cryptographic control. So once you will like have encryption in place, you will have encryption keys, right, to break the encryption, or the people who are authorized to access that encrypted data will have the encryption key. So this one asks that always manage those encryption or cryptographic keys throughout their life cycle. So what happens? Every cryptographic key has a life cycle from inception to deletion. So let's understand this control with an example. So generally what happens to manage the encryption key, the vault in which they are managed, or like security module is called hardware security module, right? Which generally help to securely generate and store the encryption key. So you need to protect that vault where you are keeping the encryption keys secure. The next one is supplier management, A.5.22. So here we need to ensure that information security requirements are met in supplier relationships. Let's understand this one also with an example. So let's say there is an organization, right, which has contracted IT company to give it IT services, like the company which will manage all its incident and all. So a kind of security requirement in the contract is necessary. So whenever a service agreement is signed with any vendor or any supplier, make sure all the security requirement like data protection agreement are also in place because they are the one who will be accessing your data and they are not part of your company, right? So what if they leak any data? So there has to be a legal compliance in your contract so that if anything of that happens in the future, it happens as a deterrent, and you can also act if something is realized like that. So we will cover the next controls in upcoming videos, and thank you so much for watching this one.